Hi, welcome to Filler. I'm Joe.
And I'm Steve.
We are here to talk about things we love, things that fill our cup. So, this is going to be our get to know you episode. Some introductions about ourselves, things that we enjoy, and just general recommendations and responses that we have for one another. Because I think you and I like similar things in an interesting Venn diagram.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, because we both like movies, music, comics, books, video games, but to differing levels and differing genres. So it's like there's enough overlap in taste and medium that we can suggest things to each other that we might not have both already experienced. So
Which people are going to find out when they hear our lists.
yeah, there's going to be some overlap there, and also just looking at yours, I'm interested to hear you talk about some of these things and see if I might want to check them out.
Yeah, should be fun. First, before we jump into it, maybe the people should know who we are. So maybe let's do like a quick elevator pitch. Who are you as a person? How would you define yourself and whatnot?
Failed screenwriter, attempted singer, and dog dad. My name's Steven Spiroli. I had studied screenwriting in college after starting as a magazine major and then switching to film because I had friends that were in film and I liked what they were doing more. And I've always loved music and movies and TV and video games my whole life. I was pursuing film for a while and knew that wasn't really the industry I wanted to be in. So now I've kind of had a different relationship with creativity since I've been able to let it just be something that I love for its sake instead of trying to make a career out of it per se, but giving my space the freedom or giving myself the space to pursue it to its logical conclusion, which like led to starting a band that you are in, and we've made some really good music and played a lot of great shows together that now it excites me to think of like what could we do next with it, not because we have label expectations or we're trying to like get out of our jobs. It's like, no, we just like doing it, and if we can take it to a next level, that would be wonderful. And yeah, that band is called the LVP. I started it in like 2020. Demoed some songs with Kyle to get you and Vince into it. And now we have our friend Thomas on drums instead of Kyle. And it's really cool that I was able to bring you onto that project and we made it together. And now you've brought me onto this project that you've started. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Cool. That was awesome. Wow. That was a very succinct way of everything.
I had practice from that interview with Kanum I just did.
Oh, yeah. Man, Kanum should have interviewed me so I could get ready for this. Cool. Let's see. I am trying not to define myself by my job because I heard that on a podcast that you shouldn't do that. So I'm trying to do that. Mm-hmm. I think first and foremost, I'm just a person who really, really enjoys stories. And those stories take place through various lenses of media, hence Filler, the podcast. But I really grew up loving reading, and that sticks with me now. I'm a big lover of comics. I became a big lover of manga too now. I've always loved literature, which led me to pursuing short story writing and fiction writing, I guess, in general. But like short stories is my bread and butter because novel writing is really hard. And I'm not sure it's worth the effort, at least for me personally. I do enjoy reading novels, though. I'm an English teacher by day, and by night I am a bassist who plays in most bands in Brooklyn.
That's true.
Which I'm trying to dial back. That's actually one of my New Year's resolutions, is to be... I want to channel that creativity because I really enjoy that, but I want to do it into different directions, learn different skills. Mm-hmm. I think I'm very much of a jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing, and I like that. Instead of trying to just stick in one lane, I like doing multiple things.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the kind of media that fills your cup.
So I used to watch so many movies. I have I think about 400 movies on Blu-ray and DVD
Oh wow.
in like 2 giant CD wallets that I got inspired by a friend freshman year who had a CD wallet full of movies. I was like, I'm gonna do that.
Do you have all the
Collect more.
cases for them too?
Yeah, but they're all at my mom's house
Oh,
upstate.
okay.
Because I'm like, I don't have the room for them here, but I want the movies. And it's fun to just flip through and be like, a good 25% of them I haven't even seen yet.
Mhm.
They were just ones that I think like would be good to see sometime, you know. But once I got out of the film industry, I was working at a talent agency and whatnot. I don't know. I haven't had the same connection with it that I used to. Maybe because I didn't feel like I had to keep up for the sake of being part of the industry, of like being always aware of everything that's going on. Now I can really just focus on the things I want to see. And so that's also given me more time to really dive into video games in a way that it wasn't until we made our lists for 2024 that I realized how many games I played and how many I really loved and how high a lot of them ranked on my list of media for the year. I don't know. It just kind of combines all of the mediums. You know, it's got great music, it's got great visuals, it's got great stories, and it's all something you're directly interacting with. You know, I've got my preferences on genres and whatnot, and I don't feel necessarily like games have to be like like a certain amount of playing. Like I like the more like visual novel type stuff too, or Naughty Dog games like Uncharted and The Last of Us that are a lot of it you're just watching, you know. It doesn't all have to be about gameplay for me because it's about the presentation of the product as it is, and does it succeed in telling the story or conveying the feeling. And there are some games that have like no story at all, and because they leave it open to you, like something like Animal Well, it's totally silent. You fill in the blanks for yourself, and that works to its benefit.
Yeah.
You know, so I just think it's a cutting edge medium that I'm not really realizing until these last couple years how important it is to me. Not just because, you know, I'm a nerd, but because it's actually like a cool and interesting thing, and especially to show it to my girlfriend, to like introduce her to games that that she had never played before or even heard of, to see her experience like the twists of Final Fantasy VII or the ridiculous fun of like the Ace Attorney series.
It's like you're getting to play them all over again through her eyes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I don't want kids, so I'm not going to do it that way. So I'll just introduce it to my girlfriend. Yeah.
Nice. I never thought of video games that deeply until you were talking about them this very moment. And I mean that in a really good way. I always looked at games as a way to kind of decompress at the end of the day, connect with friends. So that's why like I stick to like Fortnite, Call of Duty, things like that. But that's even bordering on content to me.
See, my problem is I suck at video games, so they can't be relaxing to me because I just get so mad.
That's fair. We shouldn't play Call of Duty and Fortnite together.
Probably not. No.
Wow. And I like what you said about it being cutting edge, just because games are still pretty modern. I don't know what the first video game was. Is it Pong?
It was like Pong stuff on the was it the Magnavox Odyssey that was basically like Pong. You have like, it's basically the same setup as Pong, where there's like 2 bricks and one in the middle, and then you'd put like a little plastic thing over your TV to make it look like it was doing something else, like hockey or tennis or something, instead of it just being literally the paddles moving.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Those were like the first gen game systems, then the Atari, then Nintendo, like that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's 100% still cutting edge because we're still in the first 100 years of video game creation, right? Like,
yeah, that's true.
It hasn't been that long since they've been invented, and it's just increasing.
When did we get the talkies? Has it been 100 years yet since audio was added to film?
Ooh, maybe just about, if not very soon. It's got to be. Yeah, maybe it'll be the 2030s. I don't know. We should look that up.
Yeah,
that's a good one to know. I kind of already said I really like comics. I really like books. That's usually like my go-to media. Um, I used to look at movies similarly to you. I think when you were working at a talent agency, every year I would have a resolution to watch 75 movies, which is just I guess it's an arbitrary number. I think one year I went for 100 and I didn't hit it that first year, and I realized how much 100 movies is.
Yeah.
And so the following year I went for 75, and I think I hit 76 or 73, something in the ballpark. And I was happy enough with that. And then I did it another year or two, and this is just within the last 5 years. And in 2024, I got up to 73 or 74, and I just didn't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I finally got to the point where I was asking myself, am I watching the movie for the list, or am I watching the movie because I want to watch the movie?
Yeah.
And 2024, I was definitely watching them for the list.
Yeah, that was 2019 for me. I had the AMC A-List subscription, and you get 3 movies a week for the cost of like basically 1.5 movies a month. So, I mean, you might as well use it. And there was one walking distance from my job. So I would, not long ago, somebody had brought up the movie, I think it's called The Art of Self-Defense with Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah.
And someone was describing it. And then I was like, oh my God, I saw that.
Yeah.
Like, I went to an AMC by myself in the middle of the day to go see that.
I think we might be the only 2 people who have seen that movie. Which, that's not to say it's bad, but I think the ending is better than all of the movie.
The ending is kind of what makes the whole movie worth it. Because before that, it's kind of boring and just quote-unquote indie, you know? Like, I mean, I like Jesse Eisenberg a lot, and like I like checking things out just because you never know when you're going to find your new favorite anything. But that, I just completely forgot that I saw it, and I was like, that was my life for a while. I would just like go see 2 or 3 movies a week by myself just because, you know? And I do miss that to some degree, but I also know like life has changed a lot. Like, you know, I've got a dog now, live with my girlfriend, have a steady job, and I'm in a different city than I was. Like, life changes sometimes. Like like what you said about, you know, are you doing it for the list, or like what number are you comfortable with? Like, sometimes your relationship with art just has to change, and that's okay, you know, because it's not, might not be getting in the way of things, but if you're not feeling compelled, then don't try to force yourself to get into it.
Yeah. Agreed. I think that's why one of my goals this year, resolutions, is to be more creative than just soaking in all types of media constantly. Cool. Why don't we jump into the list? So my idea for this is that we can alternate, starting from the bottom of our lists until the top one.
Yes.
Right? I think that would be fun. Do you want to explain how we're doing it? Because it was your idea how we came up with the...
Yeah, your idea was to do top 10, just all media of 2024, and have some honorable mentions. And it didn't have to be stuff that released in 2024, but that you experienced for the first time then.
Yeah.
And I thought a cool way to do it was to, because the medium is different for each item, or there's like 5 or 6 different media, do the honorable mentions for the first of that type of media. So like my number 10 is an anime. So I would mention the honorable mention anime at number 10 while introducing the anime that made the top 10 list.
Yeah.
But then if there was another anime on the list, then I wouldn't keep doing honorable mentions. Like, I already got that out of the way.
Yeah. I think it's intuitive. Do you want to start with your anime?
Yeah. So kind of non sequitur. I played Cyberpunk 2077 for the first time this year. You and Vince have both played it, and I have a few friends that other friends that do, and I loved it. I had some issues with some of the storytelling and some of the like edginess of it. I thought it was a little like forced at times, but I loved the world of it. Not as a place that you'd want to be, but just an immersive world and a well thought out one. And so I knew once I finished it that I was going to watch the anime Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and I sat and watched the whole thing in one sitting, and I loved it. So having those two sides of it, I think, gave the full picture, and one makes you appreciate the other more. So as an honorable mention, I'd say Cyberpunk Edge Runners for anime, but the actual anime that's making my list at number 10 is Dandadan, which, you know, you've seen it, like, or you've seen the memes of it and people dancing to the intro because it's a banger. Everybody loves it. Like, people I didn't think even liked anime like it. And it's because, well, you got me into it because you read it first. I think up to maybe episode 7 of the anime, I think, was where you left off with reading it. And from how you were describing it as just like this wild, wacky, occult story, but it's really a high school romance about two awkward kids, but they're awkward in different ways. And like, as someone who loves Kaguya-sama Love is War, that's like perfect. What's funny about Dandadan being like this, yokai meets aliens thing with a bunch of weird anime tropes that kind of make you raise your eyebrow if you aren't familiar with anime stuff. How else do you say, like,
I think you nailed it.
Yeah, titties. There's titties. Like that's kind of it.
Right.
I mean, it's like, nobody's like naked in it, but it's like close, and it's the guy loses his dick. Like this high school kid loses his dick and his testicles, and it's like,
but it's meaningful.
And that's what's so funny, because they actually found use for the crude humor and the like otherwise would be questionable situations that are like sexually charged or kind of like aggressive in a way. I don't want to go into too much detail, but because I highly recommend it to everyone, but it actually does service the story in a way that I don't think many people would think at first viewing. They would say like, oh, it's fan servicey. No, it's really not. There's a reason for it to be the way it is, and it at the end of it, or at the end of the focus of it really is just these two high school kids falling in love and being friends first, and connecting through their own loneliness, but appreciating each other and their differences, and then also kind of trauma bonding through fighting aliens and monsters. It's, I don't know, I mean, it works on a great like metaphorical way, and it works in a great like humorous way, and all the new characters that you haven't even met yet that are great. Like, you're gonna love it. It's I'm so glad that you recommended it to me, and that I was just like waiting every week for a new episode to come out on Netflix. So
I feel like because I think you make a good point about the fan serviciness of it. I feel like, and not even fully, I feel like the fan servicey part of Dandadan is the monsters, is the occult stuff. That's the hook.
Yeah.
Because that's what you watch it or you read it or however you engage with it, because he likes aliens, she likes ghosts, or vice versa, whatever it is. And you're like, oh, that's kind of fun. And then when you realize that that's not really what the story is, it's just the frame for what the story actually is.
Yes.
That's why everything works so well. They play everything for laughs, but they also play everything for heart too. And so by having that levity there, oh man, now I want to go watch. I want to go read it and watch the next arc too.
Yeah.
Nice. Was there anything else about Dandadan?
No, I think
No?
we covered it.
Cool. I should watch that. That's good. And you're Cyberpunk. So you said you actually gave me a lot of credit for introducing you to Cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I got nowhere near to beating that game.
Oh,
I played it when I was playing on PC that I built during the pandemic and is now sitting somewhere. But I started replaying it because of you on my Steam Deck.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably my favorite Grand Theft Auto game.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It runs and works how I want Grand Theft Auto to run and work. So I'm enjoying it doubly now since you said like, oh, I'm going back to it and Edge Runners is so good. Which actually brings me to my number 10.
Okay, cool.
The video game. I think it's the only video game I have on my list because that's another one of my resolutions is to play more video games.
Mm-hmm.
I chose Brotato. Which, are you familiar with it?
Yeah.
Is this roguelike? Is that the genre?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. It's like Vampire
I don't
Warriors.
know roguelike versus roguelite. I still don't know the difference.
I don't know the difference either.
Yeah.
But it's like Vampire Survivors. So if you play it like that, you know what it is. I got into this game as a way. I think it was cheap on the Steam store, which is how everybody gets into games on Steam.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very smart. And I was just like, oh, a game where you're a potato. And the potato has chainsaws, and it has like this ability to like kill monsters quickly. All right, I just started running through it one night with all these characters, and the levels increasingly getting harder and giving me more anxiety. And I would find that I would always have such a level of satisfaction when I beat a level, even though again, there's no story, there's no nothing. I'm just a potato in this like little area. Walking around shooting people with a machine gun. Doesn't even make sense, and I loved it so much. It got me so back into video games that from there I was like, all right, like I have to finally play God of War Ragnarok, which is not even on my list, and it's like one of my most favorite games I've ever played.
What a great gateway,
right?
to Ragnarok,
right?
Potato,
entirely disconnected from one another. I got to finish that game too. That's a game that I'm putting off from finishing because I know. I'll just be waiting forever until the next one.
I can't wait for you to finish that. That's going to be great.
Yeah. No, I'm excited for it. I love Brotato so much. I actually shared it with my partner, and it got to put these points where she would be on my Steam Deck, and I was like, oh, I want to play. Like, that's you got that for me. Like, why are you on my Steam Deck? But I was really happy to see that she was really engaging with it, and so that's leading us now to get more into video games. I have to buy a PS5 controller because It Takes Two just went on the premium store.
Yes. I think I downloaded it.
Same. Yeah. I just added to the library immediately, and I was like, all right, I've been waiting for this because I think that will be the game that really gets us into playing together, which should be fun. This is the worst thing, or I guess the best thing about having Brotato at 10. I really don't have that much to say about it. Just it's a fun time.
It's just cool because like the whole like cozy game thing is really taken off lately, and it's got that crossover appeal of like the cutesiness of it, but it's also like hardcore action.
I was gonna say that you said cozy, and I never even thought of that, but you're right.
I don't think it's cozy, but it's got that aesthetic to it that
suggests coziness.
Yeah, and it's at least like funny to see the disconnect of it.
Yes, I think I don't treat it as cozy. And I treat it in a way of like, got to be the next boss, got to get to the next level, got to get the next power up. But my partner will play it, and I think to some level, she probably does experience a cozy element to it, and then gets into my realm where she's like, oh, I got to try this potato because it has that power up and whatnot. But because she's much more like what was that? It was the COVID game, Animal Crossing.
Oh, yeah.
I got into Animal Crossing, and I was like, this is fun. Got pretty, I guess, quote unquote, far. There's no real story or anything. Is there in Animal Crossing?
You just kind of get KK to come to the island, and
right?
Then you beat it, but you can like terraform it as much as you want.
Right, you can just keep going. Yeah. So like, I did a lot of it, and eventually I just fell off. I think because I had to go back to work, so I eventually fell out of love with it. But she really liked Animal Crossing. She truly found the coziness element of it. So I wouldn't be surprised if I went up to her and I was like, "Did you like Brotato because it's just a potato killing things at the start?" And then I wouldn't be surprised if she said yeah.
I also got my girlfriend into Animal Crossing after I had played it because it was also a COVID game for me. But the funny thing is she's an early bird and goes to bed really early, so like I have to play games after she goes to bed a lot of times, and sometimes I wake her up because she can hear me just going fuck, like just messing things up and like sucking at games. And she'll tell me, she's like, Steve, if it makes you so upset, why do you keep playing? And I'm like, because I have to beat it. Like I got to prove to myself that I can do it. And then I got her Super Princess Peach on the DS because she grew up with that game, and I got it for her birthday. Yeah, her birthday's close to Christmas. I couldn't remember which. Yeah, I gave it to her for her birthday, and and I let her play it on my old DS. And I'll just be sitting next to her, and I'm like playing something, and then she's playing it, and then she's like, "Shit!" And I'm like, "See?" And she's like, "No, I'm not like you. Shut up."
And now you'll wake up, and she's like, "Shit," and you're like, "That's my girl."
Yeah.
Nice. You want to move to the next one?
Let's go to number 9. Yeah, we're never gonna get through this.
No, I think it's great. This is fun. Do you want to go? You want me to go?
I guess it was me, then you.
Sure.
Like alternating like that.
Let's do it. Yeah.
So I'm kind of embarrassed at how few books I have on this list.
I love the book you chose, though.
It's a good one. Okay, so here's the thing. I read a lot this year. This is one of my higher reading years. Again, my girlfriend's really into reading, and she works in the book publishing industry. So she's turned me on to a lot of things, like The Secret History by Donna Tartt. That was one of the honorables I have here. That book, I couldn't put it down at times, and that doesn't happen a lot for me because I kind of fall asleep easily with reading.
I fell asleep pretty easily with Donna Tartt's The Goldfinch.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
She also said, like, The Goldfinch is good, this is better. And I was like, okay, I'll try this. Because I'd heard of The Goldfinch from the movie, but I had never heard of this. And then I think that new Foxing album is referencing The Secret History.
There is a song title, Secret History.
The first song is called Secret History, and then the front cover of it is a Greek statue head, and it's all about like students learning ancient Greek and stuff.
Oh, interesting. And see, this is gonna be my way into The Secret History is through Foxing.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with that.
I think it is. I gotta ask Thomas. Maybe he knows. And then the other big thing that I read this year was the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I'd finally read it for the first time, and even my girlfriend hadn't read the third one yet. And you said you haven't either.
I'm putting it off because I know how much I'll love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with God of War. It's the same thing with Dawn to Dawn. It's the same thing with so many things. It's
interesting that you can do that, because when I love something, I just binge it.
I have to stop. My partner and I were watching the movies as I finished the books. Mm-hmm. So I read The Hobbit. We watched the movies, and granted, not great movies, but it was a nice time together.
Yeah.
Read The Fellowship, loved it. Watched the movie, loved it. Two Towers, same thing. Mm-hmm. And then when we finished Two Towers, I was like, oh, Two Towers leaves off differently in the movie than it does in the book.
Yes, it does.
And I was telling her, I was like, this is the part, like this is what makes Two Towers,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, I don't want to watch Return of the King because I don't want it to end.
Oh.
And so I was like, I don't want to read the book because then it's going to end. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of thing.
So yeah, I loved finally doing that, and it finally started to click with me, the whole Tolkien verse, the whole Middle Earth thing. Like, I'd always liked the movies, but I don't know, it was never my favorite fantasy thing. But the books really started to get me, because like out of nowhere sometimes, like they'll just describe like what a rabbit is thinking as they're walking by.
It's beautiful.
It is. It's like it's a weirdly modern thing.
Yeah.
That I wasn't expecting. Anyway, my actual pick for my favorite book that I read in the past year was actually, and specifically was an audiobook, because this was the best way I think to experience it, was Will by Will Smith.
Did he narrate it too?
He narrated it. I found that I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks except memoirs, especially if it's the author reading it. Laura Jane Grace's book, Tranny, I listened to that after I had already read it. I re-listened to The Disaster Artist after reading it, because Greg Sestero did it, and he does Tommy Wiseau's voice whenever he's doing his lines, and it's great. But the Will Smith book, I couldn't stop at times, and which sucks because Spotify only gives you 15 hours a month to listen to. But it was so introspective and brutally honest and interesting in so many ways, because it's starting out with him as a kid dealing with an abusive father that he still loves and respects, and having to balance that, and how he and his two siblings, I think it's two full siblings because he also has two half sisters, they all internalized it differently. The abuse, and like the abuse that he gave their mother, how that shaped them all to be different people, and how it shaped him into a people-pleasing entertainer, which puts him on the forefront of hip-hop as a cultural juggernaut that becomes what it is, which is so funny to see, like, that on his first tour, he was out with, like, I think it was Public Enemy and 2 Live Crew, and here he is not saying any curse words or anything because his grandma told him not to, and he just stuck with that. And then he just kind of fell into acting by impressing Quincy Jones, like, on the spot, and getting into Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and they kind of, like, took half the idea and molded the rest of it around him. And then just seeing where he is through all of this, and having the delivery of it in the audiobook being the amazing actor Will Smith, who is as, like, charming and charismatic as he is, like, deep and introspective, and can convey all of it. And also hearing him say that he's actually not as nice of a person as you think he is. And this had come out before the Oscars slap and all that.
I was going to ask.
Like, it was just a really cool look into a person that has been in things I've loved my whole life. And, you know, without getting too parasocial, it was just nice to see who that person was and what was going into those performances that I grew up loving. And there, just the thing that made me love it even more, like, it took it over the top for me, was just hearing him say, "I've been an alien fighting secret agent and a cowboy. I even got to be a fish."
That's true.
I was just like, you know what? Yes, you were, man.
That's awesome. It sounds like your experience with Will, the book, not the person, is similar to my experience with Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen.
Did you actually read it or listen to it?
I didn't listen to it, but I know Will Smith wrote Will, right?
Yeah.
He did? Okay. So I know Bruce Springsteen wrote Born to Run. So his voice is very, very evident when I read it. I'm not an audiobook person because I just can't stay focused that way. And I don't think I had the same affection for Bruce that you do for Will when you were reading Will. But it was awesome to see this person who's still, I guess, I mean, granted, he's of retirement age and whatnot, but he's still, like, he could still sell out stadiums, right? So he's still at the height of his powers. It was really great to see him as a human, and it made me all the more respect him and want to get into his music. But we should probably save that for a later episode.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
But I like how that made you feel. I think that's cool. I think that's really interesting. And it makes me want to read that, too, because Will Smith's not a person that I'm necessarily interested in, but hearing your experience be like that.
I don't really know what possessed me to listen to it. I think I was rewatching a Todd in the Shadows video about his album Lost and Found. It was a Train Records because it wasn't a good album. But he did a lot of research for that episode, and he talked about the book. And I don't know why. I think I was just on a memoir audiobook kick that I was like, I should try this. I heard it was good. And it was one of those things that made me realize how much I've always loved Will Smith more than I thought I did.
Nice. Cool.
What's your number 9?
My number 9 is not a book. It is Solo Leveling.
Oh, I hear this is so good.
Yeah. It started, I think, as a webtoon. And then it became an awesome anime on Crunchyroll, which is how I interacted with it. I was in Colombia over the summer on a really, really long trip, and I was having a rough time. I got sick, all this stuff. And so in the throes of my sickness at one point, I threw on Solo Leveling. And I think maybe the first episode was a little, like the slightest bit rough, but not boring. It was just a lot of table setting. And immediately the second episode was like, no, this is actually what it really is.
Okay.
And then you watch and you're like, okay, interesting world. It's all, have you watched it? Have you read it at all?
No, but I saw, when I was at Comic-Con this past year, there was this massive line for some Solo Leveling, like, I want to say like VR experience or something.
That makes sense. Yeah, in terms of
Okay.
the video game, yeah. The whole conceit is that they are in a world where portals open up and monsters are coming through these portals and affecting Earth. And so heroes fight the monsters. Then those heroes level up to take on the monsters because there are higher level, higher ranking monsters and so on.
Okay.
So it's semi-isekai because there's a whole other world aspect, which is may or may not be virtual, depending how far you're into the show or the manga or the webtoon. But it all starts with a character who he's the lowest of the low rank, and he just goes because he needs to make money for whatever his need is. I think it was because of his mother. Like his mother's in the hospital, so he's going to make money, and he's not good at it, and he's always on the verge of death. And then the parties are always carrying him. And then suddenly he is able to get through this. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm being super vague right now. He's able to get through a dungeon, and he ends up being the only, if I'm remembering correctly, maybe he's one of 2-3 survivors from it. And he unlocks a secret part of the game.
Oh.
Or a secret part of the world that is a game within the world. So it becomes a game anime, but it's also isekai. It's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
And then he just keeps on leveling.
Okay.
And the episodes go, he levels and he levels and he levels. And then by the time season 1 ends, it is a very different show than what it started as, because it is
the Attack on Titan effect.
It's the Attack on Titan effect. Yeah, it is 100% a show about a guy leveling up, getting better, taking on more and more monsters that are stronger and stronger. And then he learns more about this secret game thing that he's a part of. And it seems like there's a lot more mythology and lore to the show that you do not get in season 1 whatsoever. You get the slightest hint at the very end.
Oh, there are hints.
There's at the very end you get the hint.
Okay.
You get one major hint, and I read a little bit of the webtoon ahead to see, because I couldn't wait for the new season, although I think it's coming out soon. And I was like, oh, they are going this deep into it, and it explodes.
Okay.
The world is so much bigger than what they let on, even though the world is huge to begin with. And it was one of the first anime that I was like, I can't stop.
Okay.
Like I'm not a binge person, I'm not, and I was just like, yes, next episode, what happens? I was so close to even watching the clip show, even though I just watched all the clips. But I was like, got to stop somewhere. But yeah, I love Solo Leveling.
Okay, yeah, no, you convinced me. I'm gonna get into that.
You'll knock it out. Yeah, that's like a weekend. That's that, like even less than. You'll love it.
Cool.
What's your number 8?
I'm so embarrassed. Okay. So movies. I cannot believe that I am the former. I have a bachelor's in television, radio, film, right? And focus in screenwriting, minor in theater. And yet my 3 movie picks are 2 honorable mentions and 1 top 10 placement. One of the honorable mentions is The Holdovers, because I didn't see it the year before. My girlfriend and I waited like a whole year to watch it, and then we finally did. And we loved it. It was just such a heartwarming and like succinct movie. It's a little long, but not in the way that it feels long. Like it earns its length. And then Godzilla -1 was like, it brought me to tears. It was one of the, I know that's going to appear for you later. Spoilers. But, it's that was easily the best Godzilla movie I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't really count a lot of the like silly ones with the rubber suit fighting different Monster of the Week things like that. I'm not big into those, but I really love the original. I love Shin Godzilla. I even like the American ones.
I think was it 2017? Was that the most recent reboot of the American ones?
That was 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
That was the Gareth Edwards.
That was Gareth
one, right?
Edwards. Yeah,
I thought that was a genuinely good movie.
I did too.
Yeah, I thought that was a good one.
And then I didn't like King of the Monsters like at all when I
Yeah.
saw it, and then went back to the first one, the Gareth Edwards one, and was shocked at how tonally different the two were.
I think that feels like studio interference for me.
Yeah,
I feel like they were immediately like, we need to capitalize on this as IP and make this into the entire franchise again, whereas he just told a really tight Godzilla story.
yeah, and it's just gotten a lot like sillier and dumber, and like including Kong and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why Japan decided like, okay, they did all right with the new Godzilla movies. It's fine, but they still don't get like what it's really about. So let's make Godzilla -1, where it is the most direct correlation to its origins as a story about the nuclear bombing of Hiroshima that it actually is. Aside from maybe the original in Shin, because like in Shin, when they threatened to nuke Tokyo to kill Godzilla,
I haven't seen Shin. That's on my list to watch.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, I'm kind of spoiling something, but basically, like, when that is what the Americans offer as their solution, you feel everyone in Japan being like, not again.
Okay.
Like, it's a great moment.
So it's still about the whole nuclear part of it, no?
In a way.
Okay.
I mean, it's more of the threat of it, but, like, that movie focuses more on, like, the inefficiency of, like, governmental bureaucracy and how they're all just standing around going from meeting to meeting and no one's getting anything done, and then Godzilla's just getting bigger.
Okay.
So that movie's great, but -1 is the most human movie. I won't say too much because I know you're going to get more into it, but I love that movie. So I am fucking embarrassed.
You shouldn't be.
That my movie pick
I love your movie pick.
is Sonic the Hedgehog 3.
Such a good movie. It's my first Sonic movie.
So I am so glad that you were there with me to see it.
It was a great
because
time.
we had a big group of, like, 7 people?
Yeah.
And we had some friends that had seen all the movies, some that had even played the games, or at least some of them. And then you and Laura hadn't seen or played like it. Or no, you played some of the Genesis games and stuff. Yeah. So to just throw a mix of people into it, and then to see that you're enjoying it just as a fun kids action flick with Jim Carrey doing honestly one of the best double performances ever made.
It's really good.
Even with a stupid character that
It's
isn't
great.
even accurate to, but I don't give a shit because it's just fun.
Yeah.
Like I was just marveling at how they did it. But you throw in all the fan service for like dorks like me that love Shadow the Hedgehog, and them playing Live and Learn in the in the final act, where they like recreate a lot of stuff from Sonic Adventure 2, but in a way that actually makes a little more sense for this version of the world, and actually surprised me with a pretty good Keanu Reeves performance.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't expecting much from him, because I love Keanu Reeves, but not as an actor per se, more as like a personality, and like
I think I agree with you.
The action that he puts into, like, how much he gives of his body to John Wick, and to even just cameo performances. Like he's so into it, even if he's not very good. So to see a lot of the heavy work of like a character like Shadow being handled as through the animation of his like facial expressions and whatnot, with Keanu doing just enough.
Yep.
It worked really well. And
he could have phoned it in and still gotten the paycheck, and he did not.
He did not. No. And you know, they just, there's things about the Sonic movies that I don't love. I didn't like the first one almost at all. And then the second one was a big improvement, and then the third one is easily the best. So they've just been rising to the point where I'm actually excited for these movies now.
Yeah.
And it worked not just as fan service, because that didn't work for me with the originals, or the first movie at least. It's showing that they know how to make a good heartfelt story and adapt it well, because I could point out things that were different from the games and still be like, oh, I see why they did that. I see why they changed it. And this version of Sonic is very different, because in the games he's like cocky and sure of himself in a way that's more proven, because he's the good guy who always wins, and because he's been doing this forever. He's like an eternal being. He's like a Bart Simpson.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now he's growing up, and we're seeing him go through changes and arcs and stuff that you don't get into in the games. And sometimes it's annoying, and other times it's like, okay, but they're exploring something new, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah.
And with the stinger for the fourth one of a new character they're introducing, that opens up so many possibilities for that character, for Sonic's character to grow. And the fact that I'm getting this into it is ridiculous, I know, especially compared to Godzilla -1.
No, I think it's cool, and I think it did its job just beyond being a fan servicey film in terms of people like you who played the games and know a lot about it. Mm-hmm. So you were getting the Easter eggs, people that are like semi-Sonic people. It makes me want to play the games. Like, again, I was on the Steam store and I was like looking up Sonic stuff, and I saw a collection. I was like $20 for 3 games. I was like genuinely tempted.
Which 3 games?
I can't remember because somehow Sonic has like deeper lore than Metal Gear Solid, and I didn't buy it, but it's on my list. I would have bought it if I didn't already have a backlog, kind of thing. So it was great for people like me who I would not consider myself a Sonic fan whatsoever, even though I had played games and like seen the '90s cartoon. I went in with 0 expectations. We were going because you were excited. Yeah. Like, we were going to hang out with you and like watch you enjoy it, kind of thing. But we also got a good movie out of it, to the point where we want to go back and watch the other Sonic stuff. Yeah. Knowing that it's bad is kind of disappointing, but also knowing like, all right, like we can trudge through whatever. But having seen Sonic 3, you don't really need Sonic 1. You don't need
Not
Sonic
really,
2.
No.
What were the shows? Was it Knuckles and Tails?
There was just a Knuckles show.
Just a Knuckles show?
That apparently was really bad. I didn't bother.
Okay. See, you're not even bothering. Like, I want to bother. Like, after Sonic 3.
Because the way they address the connection to it in the movie, with him, like, giving the Master Emerald to Wade, because the show's really more about Wade than it is Knuckles.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't matter. Like, it's just Wade was in the other movies, too. So, like, that's a good enough gag on its own to be like, oh, Knuckles left the Master Emerald with Wade. That's funny,
right?
You don't need the whole stupid show.
See, but I want it. That's how good Sonic 3 was for me. Was that I want the stupid show, because
that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Right, that like they did their job as creators.
Yeah.
I think we're in a renaissance of game adaptations into movies and television.
The Last of Us.
We got The Last of Us.
Wait, was that 2024?
I don't know. Feels like it was a while ago.
If The Last of Us is not on my list, because
you'll have it in 2025.
That's true.
The new one, the part 2, season 2, whatever you want to call it.
All right, I might have to make it an honorable mention or change some things around.
Yeah.
Did I like it more in that show? I don't know. We'll see. When we get to TV, I'll see.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I just think, having grown up with video game adaptations and constantly being disappointed by them, and adaptations of different media into other genres and medium, it was sad. Like, I think back of like I grew up on Dragon Ball Z, so when I saw Dragon Ball Evolution coming out, I remember this is how you know it's like a formative memory. I was sick one day and I stayed home from school. Dragon Ball Evolution was on TV, and it was on at 10 a.m. There's a reason it's on at 10 a.m. on a school day. It's a bad movie. And so much so that the creators have apologized for it. But it was so disappointing when that would happen. And now, like, somehow we have Sonic movies that are good, like genuinely good movies. It's cool. You just love to see it.
Yeah.
It's nice to see.
I've heard that Castlevania anime is really good, too.
I got to watch that, yeah. And that's going to make me get into that game.
Yeah.
Okay. My number 8. Oh, I feel like we should speed this along. We're taking a while. But that's a good thing.
Okay.
Okay. This is I guess my music intro one.
Okay.
So I have 4 here. So my honorable mentions for music. I guess they cross over in terms of how they were released. I really love the album The Fool by Young Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
That artist, I forget his name, and it's going to bother me. Hopefully I'll fix it in post if I learn how to do that. They stopped making music a while ago because they got burnt out on making music.
Mm-hmm.
They got burnt out on the hustle. They had a full band when they were doing it, and it just became too much. If I remember correctly, their previous album, they did all they super focused on a computer, and they just hated the creation of it. Despite it's a good album. Like there's no problems with it on the listening end, but they were tired, so they stopped doing it. The Fool is as naturalistic as you get. You hear voices of his friends in the background.
Oh, I love
you
that.
hear kids playing on little toys that are musical, but they don't infect the melodies. They add to the ambiance of it. You hear wind chimes. You hear creaks. You hear all these things that would be imperfections on any of his previous albums. And on this one, you're like, oh, no, I'm there making it with him. And you feel like you're in the house. So that was really, really good. And it was just thematically very strong for me because he was talking about a lot of the album was him talking about toxic masculinity, not in the typical way that we think of it. More so in a way of, or I guess maybe it's the typical way, but just more nuanced in ways that I've read and seen and interacted with. It was a very sensitive take on masculinity and his growing with it and his wanting to welcome his own masculinity into life while also having others accept it. And I think that's what the big wrestle was on this record. And he nailed it because there were several times on that album, and music doesn't really make me cry, even though twice on this list it's made me cry. That album, I was in tears on several songs that I probably should have written down, but from start to finish, you're just like, this could be a classic, like 1970s album that would like fit on a shelf next to something from Billy Joel.
Okay.
And then you put this on and you're like, okay, like it sounds better just because it's newer and on better technology, but the songwriting, it's gonna last. Like it's fantastic. I'm gonna listen to it on the way home from this.
Wow.
On a total different note, a total different like genre note, because I guess it's more like indie rock. It was my next honorable mention for music is "The Cleanest of Houses Are Empty" by Carly Cosgrove.
Good record.
I judge books by their covers. I judge bands by their band names, and I did not want to get into Carly Cosgrove because I think it's a dumb band name. I still think it's a dumb band name.
But you get what kind of dumb it is.
And that's this is the kind of brain rot that I hate because it's a part of me. It really bothered me how good this record was because their name is so stupid, and it's truly deep. It's a very meaningful album to me. It got me through a lot of hard times. Again, when I was like having my rough time in Columbia, I put this on and I was like, okay, like this is very, very grounding for me. And like, I'll get through this. I can be resilient. I can grow from this. Yeah, just start to finish. Incredible album. Like that's my emo rock, pop punkish element. This is the popular pick. And I hate that it's the popular pick, but it deserves to be the popular pick, is Wristwatch by MJ Lenderman.
Yeah.
He's got his tongue in cheek that whole song, and you're just like, piece of shit. You're a genius, but I hate you. Yeah, but I don't think I loved Manning Fireworks like everyone loved Manning Fireworks. I think people really got obsessed with it. I think that was like very pitchfork core.
Okay.
For people nowadays. It's a good album, but nothing that it's like it's easy to go back to, but I consider that album like easy listening for people our age, which isn't a bad thing, but I don't really need it. Wristwatch, I don't care how easy listening is. That might have been like my most played song of the year on Last FM. Wow. I don't remember. It's like 2 minutes and you just like run through it, and I think that's his Himbo Dome song. Like he says Himbo Dome and you're like, yeah, man, I'm going to the Himbo Dome too. Like, I guess on a more serious note, my song of the year was Houston Lake by A Place for Owls. That was off their second album, which I got to review for Swim Into the Sound. And I count myself lucky because I know a few of the guys personally. Granted, it's like through whatever social media and Discord, internet stuff. But I've talked to them pretty often, and I got to engage with them about the record pretty directly. I wrestled writing about this record so much because there was such clear care and intent on everything that they did that I wanted my review to reflect that care and intent. So I listened to it several times over and over again. And I think I put it out. I think I finally cracked it under a note of procrastination. Taylor, the editor on Swim Into the Sound, was like, "Hey, like, when are you going to be ready for it? Or like, if you don't have to do it if you don't want to." Ben, even from A Place for Owls, he messaged me. I think I emailed him something, and he emails back. He's like, "Hey man, no stress if the album review doesn't come out." He's like, "It's all good." And I was like, "No, it's coming." I want it to happen. It's just I really wanted to crack the nut the right way because they did it the right way. So I wanted to do them right, you know. And so when Taylor was like, "When are we putting it out?" I was like, "Hey, I actually have this idea. Now that it's like super late, why don't I write this through the lens of gratitude?" And it became like a Thanksgiving release for Swim Into the Sound, and it just everything fell into place. But Houston Lake is the first, I guess, quiet song on the album. They're very Manchester Orchestra, Jimmy Eat Worldy kind of emo rock. Even though the last song on that album is pure Coldplay worship.
Really?
In the best way, though.
I don't think I listened to the whole record. I have to.
Oh, you got it. When you get to that last song, you just have such catharsis and like the way you get to a Jimmy Eat World closer. But you're listening to it and you're like, I'm thinking of Coldplay right now. And it's like the best of Coldplay. It's like the Fix You, the Yellow, the Sparks Coldplay, you know?
First 2 or 3 records,
Yeah. But Houston Lake just several times, like it was damning. Like I was crushed every time I got to this song. And I was like, I got through their first song and I was like, yep, that's it, that hits. Second song, I think this was maybe the fourth one. They were all good. And then I would get to Houston Lake and I'd be like, oh, I feel gutted. And I'd have to take a breath. And then they pick you right back up because they know what they're doing when they're putting the track order together.
That's so important.
It is important. Yeah, they care a lot. They're such good musicians. Yeah, shout out to A Place for Owls.
Yeah.
Man, everyone should listen to A Place for Owls.
Go follow them on Blue Sky.
Yeah, and on everything. Go listen to them. Go buy a T-shirt and a record.
Hell yeah.
Go talk to Ben about fantasy novels. He's really into Mistborn. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like tangenting. Nice. All right, our number 7.
This is a great segue because I also did music. I'm not going to get as deep into it because I don't think I engage with music as deeply as you do. And that's something I would like to work on.
That's interesting because you're the lead songwriter in LVP.
It's the thing. I care more about my own lyrics than anyone else's. Not like mine are better. It's just like I'm more forgiving of other people's.
Gotcha.
If I think something sucks that I make, I just don't do anything with it. You know, I don't even try to fix it half the time. I'm just like, nope, that idea didn't work. So that's all stuff I got to work on. But you said something interesting just now about track order.
Yeah.
This might be the only thing that I have a problem with about this honorable mention album, and that's The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess by Chapel Roan.
Okay.
2023 record, but I got into her this year.
I think I agree with you on the track order.
Yeah, it's just it's got a little filler on it, and it's not sequenced in a way that I think really amplifies the messages of all the songs. And I think Guilty Pleasure is a weak closer. Other than that, Chapel is my fucking queen, and I love her.
Yeah.
And she's easily the artist I've been most excited about to come out in the last couple years. The kind that I'm like listening to a lot, and especially for pop music, because I tend to stick a little more toward like rock and punk. So to have a pop star that I'm this into is pretty cool. Other honorable mentions include GNX by Kendrick Lamar. Again, I'm not a big hip hop fan either, but I've always loved Kendrick and I've always respected him. I don't care who you are, you listen to him and you know this is the master at work, you know?
He demands respect, but not in a way that is commanding. Just in a way of like he comes on and you're like, oh, I know what he's doing.
Yep.
And you sit back and you listen and you go, yeah, he did that.
Yep.
Like,
even if you don't get the references.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you just know he knows what he's talking about, and that's all that matters, you know. And it's just funny what a banger all the song or most of the songs are, and some are just like quiet jams and stuff. Like just the whole thing is great, and it was a surprise release, just great to get. Another honorable mention is I Got Heaven by Mannequin Pussy, one of my favorite bands in the world.
You got me into them.
I did.
Yeah.
And it took a while because
it took a while.
Because again, the name.
It was the name, yeah. It was, and it's not. I wouldn't consider myself like prudish in any way.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like off-putting. I'm like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah.
But I put on I Got Heaven, and what's the big one on there? Loud Bark.
Oh, I love Loud Bark.
Yeah.
It's like the best song on there. It's one of the best songs they've made ever. And I've seen them live 4 times. I've taken my girlfriend to see them 2 of those times, and she's not a big like crowds or concert person, but she is smiling ear to ear the whole time we see them. Like they're this amazing queer feminist melodic punk band that like are always breaking new ground and finding new avenues, and do exactly what I want to do of towing the line between just the most tender, soft, heartfelt stuff and then the most perfect guttural screaming of passion and frustration. And Missy DeBeast is like just the best.
They're extremely dynamic.
And I'm more pissed about the band name for their sake that the world won't catch up to them and be like putting some fucking respect on that name. You know? And then the last honorable mention is Imaginal Disc by Magdalena Bay. I mean,
I don't know this at all. I've never heard of Magdalena Bay.
You will love this album. It is
What's the genre?
Future pop.
Okay.
I don't really know how to describe it. It's probably the most like its own thing I've heard all year.
Nice.
And I don't even know how to describe it. It's just solid hooks and interesting concepts about the self and your reflection of yourself. And I don't even fully know what it's about, but it's just so earwormy and so textured that it's just amazing to listen to all the way through. And that was a recommendation from a friend named Allie. I think she went to go see them, I think the day we were playing a show. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I probably would have gone to the show because that album's incredible. But my number one actual pick, weirdly, I don't have that much to say. For number 7, my album pick is You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To by Knocked Loose. I've never been a big Knocked Loose fan. I knew the memes about the like bark bark thing, you know.
That's
like,
all I know about Knocked Loose is the memes, yeah.
That's all I thought they were because I didn't care. Because like, you know, with metalcore, it's like I'm kind of past that moment in my life. Like even then in high school when I was listening to that more, like only the stuff that felt worth it to me stood out because a lot of the band sounded the same, especially when they were all doing chugs and all doing screams and breakdowns. It's like, okay, you got a formula. What's interesting about this? What's actually heavy about this?
Yeah.
This album's fucking heavy because it's about like dealing with the frustrations around like religion and finding your own like peace while seeing the hypocrisy of religion like against or working its way in the world.
Oh man, College Joe would have loved this.
Yep, and it's also weirdly catchy. Like their song "Suffocate" with Poppy, who's also great and also put out a good record this year, has a breakdown with the calypso beat.
That's awesome.
And I hate the calypso beat because I think it's so overused. And then I heard it in a breakdown. I was like, that's fucking genius. Why has no one ever done this before?
That's
and
awesome.
Maybe it has been done, but like it works so well. And Poppy's voice on there is so shrieky in an amazing way. And they did a sequel to Slaughterhouse with Chris Motionless, and that's great. Like, it's just such a good record. And if you're into heavy music at all, like you probably already know about it because of the Jimmy Kimmel performance where they scared the shit out of people.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's it. That's what it's supposed to be.
And they got flack for that, which I thought was really messed up because I thought they retained their roots in their performance, right? Like they didn't sell out.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I think it was they dared to be themselves and still. I mean, it's kind of like Turnstile being on Seth Meyers.
Yeah.
That like, oh, they're a hardcore band, but they're moving up because they're good enough to be able to reach a wider
Right.
audience. But they're not sacrificing anything to get there, and I love that. So yeah, the Knocked Loose totally turned me around on them.
Nice. I have to check that album out. We're gonna switch gears for music for my next pick, my number 7, which I don't have any honorable mentions for, even though we are gonna come back to movies again later in my list.
Mm-hmm.
My number 7 is The Substance. Did you watch it yet? No. Okay.
I'm not going to.
You're not going to. What holds you back from watching it?
I don't like horror.
Okay, interesting.
I don't like the feeling of being scared.
Okay.
Gross out stuff just disturbs me in a way that I don't find enjoyable. I know a lot of people have said the same thing, and then they turn around and like learn to love it.
Yeah.
I'm just not there yet.
That's fair. I was gonna say I wouldn't have considered this a particularly scary film, but it is body horror, and it is heavy on the body horror, which I was not ready for going into it because I try not to watch trailers, especially for horror movies. I just liked it for the concept. Like it was a high concept, like Demi Moore takes the substance and then becomes Margaret Qualley, and then things happen, and I was like, I'm there. Why not?
Yeah.
But the way it was shot, I think you'd really appreciate it. I think you'd really appreciate how much this movie loves movies. It's very, very clear that it is not trying to be real. It is not trying to be the Marvel desaturated look.
Yeah.
This is like a pop movie, in the best way. And I think the director even went on record saying they're like, the whole point of the movie is not to make franchises. They were asked about making a sequel, and she was like, no, the whole point is like you can't be new again.
Yeah.
Like you make something new. I'm gonna go make something new, and they made something new. I think you remember when I came to practice after watching The Substance. I went with my sister to go see it at Nighthawk, and it was great. It was a great time. It was a really long movie. I wasn't anticipating how long it was. It earns its runtime, 100%. Even though there were some moments where I was like, I wish it was a little tighter, but I think it's just because I was uncomfortable, not necessarily needing it to be tighter. It just kept going, and it just kept getting more and more into it. And I don't want to say what it is. I guess like the body horror of everything. But every time you're like, where's this going to go? It goes somewhere where you didn't expect, but it was the right place to go for the story. And I needed someone to talk to about it. My sister even texted me that night. She's like, I really wish we got to have a drink and really dig into that because it's bothering me.
Yeah.
And I went to rehearsal and I was like, did any of you see it? And you all said no. And I was like, I can't spoil it, and I need someone to talk to about this. And I could not function as a person that rehearsal.
Wasn't that the day of the election?
Maybe.
I think it was.
Yeah, those go hand in hand probably.
Yeah,
body
just
horror
an
and the
uneasy feeling. Yeah. I remember you coming in being visibly shaken.
Yeah.
I was like, you okay? And you're like, I just saw The Substance. And I didn't look up anything before. I was like, you went into The Substance blind?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah.
And I would do it again.
I love going into movies blind, but
Yeah.
that's a big one.
Yeah. I don't think I get shaken up easily by movies because I think I experienced a lot of horror movies growing up. Thanks to my dad, he got me into all of that. So it takes a lot to rattle me, but that movie really rattled with me, and I think that's why it stuck with me. And I think that's why that's one of my top movies of the year, just because I don't know, it's just fantastic. It has something to say. It's fun to watch. Good characterization. Dennis Quaid plays the worst person on the planet in it, and you hate him mostly because it's ASMR. And it's disgusting. It's there's a scene where I think he eats shrimp, and you're disgusted by him eating shrimp, and it's not because he's eating shrimp, it's because who he is eating shrimp, and the smacking of the lip. I said I wouldn't rewatch it, and I kind of want to rewatch it. So if you ever reconsider, I will watch it with you.
Okay.
That's not a challenge or an invitation. It's just that I'm there if you want to go there.
Okay.
Yeah, The Substance was great.
Cool.
What's your number 6?
So my number 6, this is where I start getting into video games because I want to say three or four of my top 6 are all video games.
Okay.
And I have honorable mentions.
Okay.
That's how many games I played this year. And it was a weird year for me to be able to do that many. But the honorable mentions, Super Mario Party Jamboree, because that is the most fun multiplayer game you can have. And it is the most brutal, like, relationship tester you can have with any person you know that you play it with. But it is the best Mario Party in years, so it's great. I'm a big Zelda fan, so there was a new 2D Zelda game where you actually play as Zelda, called Echoes of Wisdom, and it was really good. I really liked it. It was probably overall maybe middle of the road, maybe slightly above that, because of the whole mechanic of, instead of just fighting like with a sword and shield like Link does, you copy enemies and items in the world and then replicate them to do your fighting for you or to solve puzzles or anything. So all the puzzles have multiple solutions because it's got that Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom approach of like, how can I make this work?
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed that, but then the combat does get a little tedious when you're just like, okay, let me just send out my best guy, to do it for me. But there is also a cool thing where you can like embody Link's spirit, I guess, to act like him for a limited time with the sword and the bows and the bombs and stuff. And that's fun, and it gives a little something to the people who just want like a regular Zelda game where you play as Link. And it was weirdly lore heavy. Didn't expect that. Overall, good game. Really, really liked it. It's all done in the Link's Awakening remake art style, so it was cool to see that come back. Liked it a lot. Similar kind of game was the Plucky Squire. That's another honorable mention I have that reminds me a lot of A Link Between Worlds, where you're a little squire in a children's book that is fighting, the big bad guy, and it's all colorful and cute and everything, and you're moving through the book. So like you're seeing pages turn.
That's cool.
And you can move words on the page and swap them with other words that you find elsewhere to change what's happening. So like, I can't think of an example, but if you look in the trailer, it's cool. It's like, how do you get through this? Or it's like this castle was in the forest, but then you swap out the word forest, and then it says the castle was in the desert, and then the image changes, and suddenly you're going through a desert in a castle. It was something like that. There were a bunch of examples like that, and there's puzzles built around it. But the coolest thing that reminds me of A Link Between Worlds is that you literally get forced out of the book, and suddenly you're 3D walking around the bedroom of the child who's reading it.
Oh, that's weird. That's cool.
It's really cool. It's only 7 hours.
Yeah.
I knocked down like 2 sittings, and it was just a great game. It was everything I wanted it to be, and it had been in development for a long time.
Is that on Switch, or what is that on?
Switch, PlayStation, Steam.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. For Vince's birthday, I gave him an eShop card so he could buy it.
Nice.
Because I was like, you need to play this. You'll love it. So there's that. Last honorable mention is Persona 3 Reload, because I love Persona. I got into it with Persona 5. I've played Persona 5 Vanilla and Royal, then 4 Vanilla and Golden. I played Persona 5 Strikers. Like, it's just one of my favorite series. They're hundreds of hours long, and they're crazy, and you can get into so much detail with it. But 3 has never been my favorite. Because there's a lot of stuff from the original PS2 release that's just kind of archaic and annoying to deal with. But the story is great. Characters I don't really love, but the story is great, and it's a really good idea, and the ending is heartbreaking. And because it was so dark, it went on to influence 4 and 5 being a lot lighter in tone. The remake that came out early this past year, Reload, kind of puts that Persona 5 coat of paint on it to make it a little more modern, a little easier, a little less tedious to do the dungeon crawling, and is all completely redone with a new voice cast. It improves upon a lot of things that basically catches Persona 3 back up to where the series is because of its own influence.
Okay.
So Persona 3 being the first like modern Persona game, and then being improved upon with 4 and 5, this brings it back to where 5 is now and what that's achieved, back to 3.
Nice.
And I really like that about it, and I think I beat it in like 2 weeks, which is flying for a Persona game. Like I want to say 2.5 weeks. Usually it takes like a month at least for me. I spread out playing 5 and 4 with my girlfriend like over a couple months, because that was like, instead of watching a show, we would play that for a little while with dinner or something. So 3 was fun to really dive into and really get into it there. Anyway, my actual pick for number 6 is the remake of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. One of the best RPGs ever made, honestly. It's so cute to like play an RPG where the numbers are so small. You know, like to see the attack does like 3 damage and your whole health is 30.
Right.
You know, as opposed to these crazy number scaling things in like Final Fantasy or whatever. It's cool to just like have this extremely funny, heartfelt story that didn't get enough love on the GameCube and was only a cult classic, to now see it like in HD and you know, given another chance on the Switch. Like it signals that like maybe Nintendo will make good Paper Mario games again.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just great to finally play it all the way through, because I've only played like parts of it and watched playthroughs of it from the GameCube version. But to play it with my girlfriend who grew up with it and the original, and she played the original with me too on Switch Online. It's a great thing to share with people, whether you're introducing them or they you, or you're discovering it for yourselves together. There's so many secrets. It's just a great, great game. And honestly has become one of my favorite RPGs, and that's a genre that I play a lot of. So, yeah.
I never played that one. I played Super Mario Brothers RPG, like the OG one.
I got the remake of that too. That's really
so
good
fun.
too.
Yeah, it's a great game.
Yeah.
And I also loved all of the Superstar Mario and Luigi, the Superstar Saga, or whatever those were. Those several games, I really enjoyed those.
Yeah.
For some reason, like I think everyone loves the Super Mario platformers, but they make really good RPGs.
Yeah.
Like too good for what they are. I think I just thought of this as you were talking about Mario. I feel like Mario is to Nintendo the way Batman is to DC, in that Nintendo can bend Mario to fit any genre.
Yes.
And they make it work.
Yes.
Same thing with Batman. DC bends him to fit anything. Time period, whatever. You might not like it, but it works because they're keeping those ideas and tropes still intact. So
that's true.
Like you'll still have Luigi
like Batman
there.
Ninja.
Yeah.
Was it Gotham by
Gaslight? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know. I think that's cool. I have to play Paper Mario, and especially now that the remake's out too. I think my Switch goes underrated in my household.
Yeah.
And especially now that I got my Steam Deck. I think my next and last console, until Nintendo probably makes like Switch 3 or whatever that successor will be, I think it's going to be the Switch 2, because I'm truly just happy with the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
I can wait for PlayStation exclusives to come to the Steam store now.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're doing. That's why I got a PS5. It ain't really worth it in the long run.
Yeah.
But like between a Steam Deck and a Switch, what more do you need?
Yeah.
Okay. It's funny I brought up comics because my next is comics. So I have 2 honorable mentions for my comics category. The first is Ultimate Spider-Man, Volume 1, Married with Children, by Jonathan Hickman and Marco Cacchetto. Are you familiar with Ultimate Spider-Man or the Ultimate Universe?
I thought the Ultimate Universe was Miles.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this is like super comicsy. So back in the early 2000s, Marvel wanted to make an updated version of the Marvel Universe, and they created the Ultimate Universe. And it was all of the characters that everyone knows in Marvel, just updated for the end of the 20th, early 21st century. In the Ultimate Universe, towards its end, Miles Morales was introduced. And that's where he got big. And he eventually made his way over to the 616 universe, because the Ultimate Universe got destroyed for whatever reasons it gets destroyed. Or did it? Whatever. It's comics. Jonathan Hickman is like a super big-brained, high-concept creator. And he comes and he says, oh, the Ultimate Universe is coming back. And instead of being... I think the original one was 1616. That was the number instead of 616. This one is 6160. So it's not the original Ultimate Universe. It's a new one. And in this Ultimate Universe, Peter Parker has kids. He's married to MJ.
When was this released?
This came out last year.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. The Ultimate Universe, came out just last year. And I think the big reason, or one of the big reasons it's super successful, is because everyone is tired of the main Spider-Man comics, because Marvel editorial wants Peter Parker to remain in his late 20s, early 30s and being a never-do-well.
Yeah.
And so everyone's like, well, Peter should grow up at some point. And Jonathan Hickman said, yeah, he should. And he gave him a family. And this is what would happen if Peter became if Peter became Spider-Man because he chose to, not because it happened to him.
Okay.
And it's just a wholesome retelling of his story. There's marital issues with MJ. I wish there was more marital issues with MJ, because he hides being Spider-Man from her. That's important because they're married. They have kids. It's not just him swinging around doing superheroics.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's that Ultimate Spider-Man's great. Not only for superheroic stuffs and whatever Hickman and Kaketto make up, but also just it's a good twist and it's different. My other honorable mention is Geiger, Volume 1 by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. I don't know how to describe this one all too well. Not because it's difficult. It's another like superhero-oriented story. A man is radiated, and he becomes Geiger, who has radiation at his fingertips, so he could activate his body to become radiated, and he becomes a superhero.
Okay.
And then it veers into dystopian America after nuclear bombs have fallen. Which that's interesting enough in its own right, but it's the way it's executed, I think, is what does it for me. Because similar to Ultimate Spider-Man, which I'm now seeing the theme between them, is it's very wholesome.
Okay.
He's got either a 2-headed or a 3-headed dog, which is his dog before the bombs fell, and it's now mutated because of nuclear radiation. But it's like that's his dog, so it's a radiated man and a radiated dog wandering and kind of being not the Robin Hood, because it's not really about taking from the rich and giving to the poor, but really looking out for the small people, the little guy there. In this broken down America that has veered more feudalistic than what America was. I wasn't expecting to like it because I'm not typically a Jeff Johns guy. He's more bombastic, I think. I think people disagree, but he's much more, to me, superheroes doing superhero things.
Yeah.
And this did not feel like that. There were parts of it. This felt more like a family man and what happens when his family goes away. How does he move on? Because he wasn't allowed to go with them. And it's just interesting. But that brings me to my actual pick for number 6, which is Absolute Wonder Woman by Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman. So in the way that Marvel has this rebooted Ultimate Universe, DC made the Absolute Universe.
Okay, I've never heard of this.
Yeah, this is like months old. I think they're in like the low number issues right now. I don't even think issue 4 came out for Batman, Superman, or Wonder Woman. The idea behind it is that the main DC universe is Superman energy, according to the author, Scott Snyder, and that everything is oriented positively and brightly. So the heroes win. They might go through challenges. There will be death. There will be obstacles. But you kind of know when you read the books, the heroes win.
Okay.
Darkseid, the new god, the villain, I guess DC's Thanos level kind of villain. Real DC heads would get upset if they heard us say that. But Darkseid, through whatever comic stuff, you can go read it if you want to read it, ends up joining with the Spectre, which is like a god, or God, capital G God, in the DC universe.
Mhm.
When he does that, he's looking for something, and he's really just looking for it's like essentially fulfillment is what he's looking for, even though they don't outrightly say that. Can't find it because that's the whole conceit of it. So in doing so, he somehow founds the absolute universe, which is considered to be dark side energy.
Okay.
So in the way, like, for example, Superman comes from Krypton after it blows up, and Ma and Pa can't find him and raise him to be human, and that's why he is Superman.
Yes.
Because he was raised with humanity. This Superman lands in, I think it's Brazil, and he becomes a folk hero to the miners there. And he's there sticking up for them because in this universe, capitalism reigns.
Mm-hmm.
And he's there and he sees how hard they work. And so he truly sees the common man, and he fights the system very directly.
Oh, hell yeah.
This Batman in it, he's big and burly. He is not rich because Scott Snyder says nowadays billionaires are evil, essentially. Maybe not word for word.
Okay, I'm glad someone did it.
Yeah. And so because of this, like, Batman is not, it's hard to relate to him in the DC universe, but in the absolute universe, this Batman's self-made. He becomes a city engineer. That's why he knows everything. He goes to the gym. He works out a lot. Like, that's why he knows how to fight. Maybe his parents aren't dead. How does that change things? Things like that. It's just these different twists that work in a darker universe, not necessarily edgy, but darker and closer to being more real. Absolute Wonder Woman was a dark horse for me because I'm not typically a Wonder Woman fan. I just haven't found the right book to get into her story best. There's great books. I just haven't read it yet. But I gave this one a shot, and I was immediately sold on it because it felt like I was reading a fantasy novel with Grecian urns.
Okay.
And so, again, like a God of War callback. Like, there's a whole run where she becomes God of War, and it's essentially like a riff on the video game series. And people didn't like it, but it's a good story. But they said it's not Wonder Woman. This is God of War Wonder Woman, but it's the absolute universe. So go ahead and make your own thing. Do your own new thing.
Yeah.
She's such a bright spot in a dark place, and she just cares. And
Cool.
that's it. And you're just, which I think you could say the same thing about the main Wonder Woman, but it's too easy. Like, her job is easy because that world's kind of already bright.
Right.
This one's not. And she just shows up and she's like, I'm here to help. Get out of the way. I got this because you don't got this with what's going on, and I'm trying to help you. And I'm just hooked. This is by far my favorite of the three that are out so far. Wow. It is so fun to read. It looks beautiful. The colors are beautiful. The drawings are beautiful. The panel orientation is just fascinating, how you work your way through it. The backstory is fantastic. I hope that book never ends. These comics brought me back to buying paper floppies, which is not good because I don't have the space for it. But yeah, it's like reading Circe if it was a comic book. The Madeline Miller novel. That's exactly what this feels like, and it's like who wouldn't want more of that? Because Circe, I think, is like a pretty universally beloved story, you know. But yeah, those are my comics for 6.
That's so cool, man. Side note: have you ever seen the movie Unbreakable?
Yeah.
You
with Bruce Willis and I do. I think that gives me the vibes of Geiger. Unbreakable,
okay.
In the way that it's kind of like a weird superhero movie.
Yeah,
but it's not a superhero
like
movie.
pre-Spider-Man, so like
right.
It didn't mean the same thing at that time to be a comic book movie.
Right. Yeah. But it's just a good drama, about superheroes. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Because when we were talking about Geiger, I was like, I bet he would like Unbreakable.
I love Unbreakable.
Okay,
I have to watch Split and Glass because I know it becomes a thing.
You can watch Split. I don't know about Glass, though.
That's what I've heard.
Glass isn't great. So we've been running for a little while, so I think we're going to split the episode here. So we're going to do numbers 5 through 1 in the next episode, where we continue talking about what media filled our cups in 2024.
Thanks for listening to this first one.
Thanks.